Welcome to another edition of Ask the AD, brought to you by Mammoth Sports. Brian Smoller with the Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor, who is kind enough to join us here in November to talk a little thing about Kansas State fans, about their attendance, with, of course, the announcement about limited fan attendance, or no general public attendance, I should say, in the month of November. And then moving forward into the plans for December and beyond for basketball. And we'll also get into a little bit of football news and notes, as well as a recap of K-State soccer and volleyball and their fine seasons that just capped off. All right, first up, though, Gene, is the big announcement that K-State made athletics both on campus with commencement being canceled, at least in person, and then athletics following up with a announcement about fans and no general public allowed for the month of November. We had some questions right out of the gate about this. Let's jump into the fans. And the first one, which is from Facebook, which says, with the coronavirus going on, do you think you'll have to cancel the entire sports season because of the rising numbers? And that's from Mike Schumann. We've seen that elsewhere. I guess, what's your response to that?
Well, certainly, obviously, what's going on across the country is very concerning. And, you know, our fans so far have been great in terms of wearing face masks and doing the things we've asked them to do in terms of social distancing, and we'll continue to do that with our basketball. We do have, you know, a little concern because of the spike right now, and we did cancel graduation, so we made the decision from a basketball perspective, at least these first games over the course of the Thanksgiving holiday, to, you know, to not have fans at those. But, you know, I don't think that we'll, you know, we're going to see cancellations, not necessarily directly because of the spread, but because I think you'll have teams that won't be able to play us, just like you've seen in football. Whether a team has, you know, too many athletes with COVID or with contact tracing, whether it's ours or another team. So I think you will see cancellations. We'll try to make those up like we have across in football. But, yeah, it's certainly concerning the more it goes up, but we just have to continue to monitor it.
Certainly doesn't seem, at least at K-State, with the sports that we have, there aren't any preemptive season cancelings made by K-State. I think if that's the nature of the question, there have been some other schools in different conferences across the country that have preemptively canceled seasons. That doesn't seem to be the case of the Big 12.
No, and certainly we've talked about that in the Big 12, and we still plan to move forward with our basketball season and our winter sports season, and then as we get into the spring as well. So you're right. I think some, as you know, some programs did, at least for the fall sports, and then they've come back and played. The Big Ten's come back and played, the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and then some of their other fall sports are going to play in the spring. So, but as of right now, we have not talked about and don't anticipate any preemptive cancellation of any of our seasons.
Of course, it's hard to predict the future, and you get into danger zone when you start to try and predict even 3 weeks from now. But some of the concern that was expressed on Twitter and on social media, as we go to our next fan question, this is kind of sums it up. With all the recent restriction announcements, do you see a scenario with no fans for the Texas football game on December 5th? And if so, refunds and all those sorts of things. Football wasn't mentioned in the release. Obviously, we're talking about the month of November. But for fans that are concerned about that December 5th game, what would you say?
It's a fair question. And we are, you know, we do talk to our county health people as things begin to change across the landscape with COVID. And we have talked to them about football in the December. We talked to them about our November information, and we asked about the December 5th game. And they said no, they still like our plan and the plan we have in place in football. They haven't seen any major issues. It is an outside venue, and that's the biggest concern right now, is an inside venue versus an outside venue. And so they've indicated that football on December 5th is going to be fine.
All right, so speaking of football, our next question as we get out of that, and by the way, if you have any more questions about that, feel free to hit Gene up on social media and anything else. We'll try and get the best questions or answers we can to you. But in staying with the football theme, this one also came about the South End Zone project, the Shamrock Zone, with about the hustle boards that were there for years that were on Brentwood Coliseum. And someone asked, this was from @KSU_Viddy, who asks, will we get the stats boards back at BSFS? And I guess that would mean coming up in the 21 season. What's your take on that?
Yeah, obviously, we do plan to have what we call a fascia board, which will go across the front of the South End Zone. That'll be used primarily for that replacement of those stat boards. Those stat boards were, I won't say ancient, but they certainly have been around a long time. So, but that's what we're going to use once the South End Zone is finished for the 2021 season, is a board across the front of the club area that'll carry most of our stats during the game. There'll be other things carried, advertisements, et cetera, but that's going to be primarily its use, is to replace that stat board.
Yeah, for the longest time, those stat boards actually had light bulbs that were no longer made. I remember that being a huge issue for many, many years. It was trying to replace those. Facilities group here at K-State had the heck of a time just trying to find the bulbs to go back in them. Speaking of football, this was an interesting question that was sent via email, and it was one that was sent actually for the last Ask the AD. We didn't get to it, but it was from a quote that was right before all the season started and the craziness in college football when we were trying to determine the best path forward for COVID-19 conference by conference. And it was a quote from Mac Brown where he said that he really wished there was a commissioner of college football to unify league policies and eliminate uncertainty. So Lee Modezit emailed and asked, what are your thoughts on the idea of a commissioner or de facto person in charge of college football?
Well, it is interesting, and it's a good question. I don't know if you've ever followed, Mike Krzyzewski have said similar comments about college basketball, but we have the NCAA for that currently, and as you know, they made a recent announcement about, how they're going to handle this year's tournament. That was the NCAA selection. But football is a little different. It's not overseen by the NCAA. It's overseen by the 5 conference commissioners. And although we did a lot of good things together collectively in making some decisions, there were some things that have probably been very helpful to have those 5 commissioners take to their boss, so to speak, and their bosses are the presidents currently. But it would be interesting scenario, and I wouldn't be shocked that those kind of conversations continue to happen across the country with whether the Power 5 or the Power 5 and the Group of 5 schools, because football is a little bit of a different animal and something that may come about. I would say that it'll be interesting. I can't say I would agree with it or not. We just have to be kind of determined how it would lay out, the role they would play, and how it would work within our current system.
Yeah, whether
That's
or not the
question.
idea is heightened because of pandemic or if it makes sense in a non-pandemic type of year. Of course, one area where it might come into play, if there was sort of college football commissioner, is in the role of bowl games. We are getting near to that point where this year, of course, eligibility requirements for bowl games have pretty much been waived. What's your take on K-State's future as far as a bowl game and the Big 12 tie-ins and that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, that's another perfect timing question. We did talk about it in a recent Big 12 AD's call. We have talked to all of our bowl partners, and they all are still very committed to hosting bowl games this year. Whether our tie-ins to our other conference opponent will be the same is yet to be seen. You're right, there may be schools in a bowl that are less than the 500 record. Hopefully that's not us. And currently, if we do what we can do, that won't be the case. But the financial situation will be very different in terms of the payouts by the bowls. But they are committed to helping us, with at least our expenses for those bowl games. You're going to see a very different approach. Instead of a 4, 5, 6 day bowl experience, it'll probably be a 1 or 2 day experience. But the bowls that are tied to the Big 12 are still very committed to us. And if we finish strong like we're capable of, then I absolutely expect us to be in a bowl game this year.
Yeah, and stay tuned for that as the bowls, for the most part, you can find what the dates are for those bowls, usually around the last week of December for most of the tie-ins for the conference and for K-State. So we'll be finding out where K-State will be traveling coming up later this year. All right, as we wrap up this edition of Ask the AD, a couple of housekeeping things to take care of. First of all, announcement and a press release that just came out here the other day about graduation rates here at Kansas State, and high marks, no doubt. Everyone to be commended and the staff here at K-State.
Yeah, Brian, it's a tremendous accomplishment. Hats off to our athletes, our coaches that make that a priority. Our academic staff, Kristen Waller and our academic staff that support these athletes at such a high level. We have great tutors. Obviously, our faculty and staff are very supportive. I think we had 7 teams with a perfect 100% graduation rate. Football was one of the highest it's ever had at 91%. I think we're the second in the Big 12 with the highest graduation success rate. And that's quite an accomplishment. And again, with the pressure that everybody has just generally in terms of maintaining their academics with their athletics and all the things we ask them to do outside, those are very impressive numbers, and hats off to a lot of people and our academic support staff. Really, really work hard with our teams to make sure these athletes are successful.
Well said. Well, we appreciate the time, Gene. I know you're a busy man as well as the crossover into basketball. We look forward to hoops getting started, hopefully safe and healthy. You stay safe and healthy. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, same to you. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our fans, and appreciate your support. And let's stay safe and have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, that'll do it for Ask the AD, brought to you by Mammoth Sports. Check us out at K-State Sports on Twitter. Keep those questions coming. We'll see you next time. For Gene Taylor, I'm Brian Smoller. Thank you for watching.